Okay, I wanted to do a deep dive here, and I did share about this in my Substack. I did a whole article on Medusa. And I love Medusa. I love all the goddesses, but I really love Medusa. I've done a lot of work with Medusa. Just gonna clear the area here. But I wanted to share the hidden history, like a big part of her story that I tapped into that I have never heard before. And I mean, that's the thing with channeling, right? Is that it really does go against sometimes what we know to be true, or the story, right? So there's definitely space here to hold open a broader perspective of Medusa and maybe who she really is. So I'm going to share a little bit about this information that I've kind of gathered from downloads and transmissions, but I also want to just like tap in with Medusa and just see like what is her message for us right now, especially for like everything that we're going through. So if you don't know Medusa's story is, I'm going to take a sip, so excuse me. Man, there's going to be a day that I'm going to nail this so well, but today is not that day. Here I am, moving my microphone around. So when I first started working with Medusa, I really tapped into like the rage side of Medusa, which is a pretty common theme or archetype to be working with in regards to Medusa. But when I was doing the weekly forecast or the weekly energetic pulse, I kind of tapped into this softness from her, which was really unexpected. And so I really wanted to like sit with that and see what would come from that. And the story that most of us know, I believe, is like the Roman version of the story, where Medusa was a priestess of Athena's temple, and she was a beautiful young woman, innocent, happy, I would say innocent is maybe like the best word to describe her. And Poseidon, the sea god, had kind of had his eye on her for quite a long time and was pretty much obsessed with her. And actually ended up cornering her in Athena's temple and violating her and harming her, if you know what I'm talking about. And Athena was so disgraced that this happened in her temple, of all places. And she didn't take her anger out on Poseidon. She actually took her anger out on Medusa and turned Medusa into a monster. And that's how we know Medusa. We know Medusa as the snake-headed, serpent-looking woman. And I became obsessed with Medusa when I watched Clash of the Titans. I think it was like 1981. Clash of the Titans. I became obsessed with Medusa. And that was really when I started becoming really obsessed with Greek mythology. I love Greek mythology. But I also, with what I do and channeling and energy and all these things, you kind of like see the story, but you pull these threads, right? Like some of the words like literally lift off the page and you're like, ooh, what's here? And I feel like that's what's happening with Medusa right now. And so that's the story we know. Medusa also came from Phorcys, and I don't even know if I'm saying these right, but just roll with me. Phorcys, which was a primordial sea god. So that's saying right there that they are older than the Olympian gods. Now, one could ask, what are the Olympian gods? I have my own beliefs. I think they're actually aliens, but I digress. And when I say aliens, like another species coming here. So, Phorcys was her dad, and he is the sea god of dangers, but he was a primordial god. And her mother, Sato, was a sea monster goddess, and I feel like she protected nymphs. I can't be sure, but just maybe put that in your back pocket. She also is primordial. So then what's very interesting is like they're the primordial sea god and goddess. And then you have Poseidon all of a sudden who's like, no, I'm the sea god. Okay? Kind of taking rulership. But what's really interesting is I think it's the Greek story that, and I've always gotten this. I've always gotten that Medusa was not human. I always felt like she was always a monster, what we would deem a monster. She was probably just a different species, right? So I think it's in the Greek story, and I want to say the Hesiod, where they actually talk about Medusa being a monster already. Okay? Medusa's name actually means guardian or protector. And I've always really strongly associated Medusa with water, to the point where I was like, maybe she's a mermaid, you know, not Ariel, you know what I'm saying? Like, not a beautiful mermaid, but like probably, you know, it's kind of like how elves weren't necessarily depicted how we see them in movies and shows and books, but like kind of scary, and you don't know what's going to happen. Like maybe that was Medusa's vibe, right? Like she wasn't this beautiful human girl, but always a very powerful primordial goddess, and she came from the water. So I associated her with like a mermaid, but now I'm starting to wonder, maybe she wasn't necessarily a mermaid. She was like, she came from the aquatic life, but was not forced, but made to live a terrestrial life, right? So she lived on land, but she had this connection with water. And what was really, really fascinating was my friend sent me this. And when I talk about water, I'm talking about like the bodies of water, but I'm also talking about the waters that we have within our bodies. What if she is the protector or the guardian of the lymph, the blood, our emotions, right? And that's actually a secret to how we alchemize and manifest our lives. I'm going to take another drink because I keep dinging my container here. So my whole thing is what if she was already powerful? And what if that's why Poseidon liked her? Because she was powerful AF, okay? What if she knew what she was doing? What if some of these stories were creative to kind of embed a different narrative because she's that powerful? And she's older than a lot of these Olympian god and goddesses. So what was really interesting was my friend sent me this article, and I didn't actually agree with everything in the article, but what the main point is that this woman had visited one of the temples in Greece, and actually it was one of the islands that there was a TV show that I loved. I'm going to have to look it up. Oh man, don't you hate when that happens? So it's actually Artemis's temple, and I have a whole other deep dive coming for you for Artemis too, okay? And what's so amazing about these goddesses is I think they have messages for us about not just like emotions or their surface stories, but literally how to claim our power, whether you're female or not. Oh, I froze. How to claim your power, but how to alchemize your life in these different. So for Medusa, it's through maybe your emotions, through your lymph, through your blood, okay? So I digress. This woman goes to Greece. She sees Artemis's temple, and Medusa is on the front of this temple as like a guardian. And what was so incredible to me is that means Medusa is powerful, like really powerful. I had to plug in my computer just to be safe. So Medusa's older than Artemis for Medusa to be on Artemis's temple. At least that's what I think. And what I also find so fascinating is that Medusa would have had to be very powerful, like more powerful or equally powerful to Artemis for her to even be on the front of Artemis's temple. Like Medusa didn't have a temple. This was Artemis. There's a couple of other things that I want to talk about too, specifically with this picture of Medusa, because she has this snake-looking thing that almost looks like a belt, but it's compressed. And it almost looks like the infinity symbol, but compressed. And that could mean so many things symbolically. That could literally indicate the Shakti, like the life force energy moving through us. The loop, right? Like the infinity loop, which is actually time, space, nothing really coming to an end, this feedback loop that we carry even within our own bodies, okay, which can sometimes be from our emotions. Think about that. Think about how often your emotions stuck in your body create this feedback loop of you telling the same story over and over and over again, right? And how this life force can actually create room, time, space for you to create a different feedback loop. I know, it sounds nuts, but just stay with me. Temple. And what's also very interesting is, again, Artemis is considered a protector. So if Medusa is considered a protector, and what's really beautiful is Medusa is looking out to the ocean from this specific temple. So that to me is saying she's watching the water, she's protecting the water. She is reminding us that there's power in the water, okay? I think there's so much more here than I could probably possibly find. If you want even more, like a deeper dive, I definitely suggest reading my Substack article, because I really go into like our lymph and how our lymph is actually a beautiful way to help us manifest. And I think that's Medusa's message. I think Medusa is trying to tell us that if we let our lymph and our blood flow properly, and we don't let our emotions stop us, we have such incredible capability of alchemizing our lives to manifest the life that we really want. And that really is what it comes back to, right? Is like not letting these things stop us from becoming who we're meant to become. And I think that's also what's so amazing to me as well, is that Medusa's story has been, like, there's been so much power that's been whittled away from it, right? I think this being and this goddess was way more powerful than we probably give her credit for, than what's passed down in the story. And the story is that she was kind of an innocent, I'm going to say ditzy, like she just didn't know, maybe ignorant to life, and not in a, because she's rude, but an ignorant because she didn't have the experiences to broaden her horizons of what life really is like. I don't believe that. I think she actually did know, and I think her story was manipulated. And I do think that these stories were embedded to also create like an imprint on us for, Athena attacking Medusa, like the woman against the woman, right? If you see another woman who's powerful, you kind of pull away. Both women can't be powerful, or another woman attacking another woman because she, did something that she didn't agree with, like really embedding that in us. That's something that we still see today. It's definitely a narrative that lives within our bodies, our emotions, our fascia, our lymph, our blood. They talk about how stories are even, like, these emotions are stored in our muscles. So I think this is something that's just like been passed down, whether we really consciously are aware of it or not. I also think this is saying that there's so much power to the Shakti, to the feminine energy, to the lymph, to the blood, to the emotions, that's another thing that had to kind of be, squashed. And what's really interesting is I'm just like making this realization now is like with Jesus, which don't even get me started on that. That's probably a whole other podcast. But, with Jesus, you are eating the blood and the body of Christ. Even though I think there's like a whole other story there, maybe that's also saying that there's power in the body, right? We have power in the body, and the church is having us look external, meaning, well, I'm not going to have the power unless I eat the body and blood of Christ. But what about not saying that you should eat it, but what if it's actually saying that there's power internally in our blood, in our lymph, in our muscles, in our tissues? And I think that's the bigger message here. And I know that probably sounds a little wild, but we're here for the wild ride. Like I'm here to channel this information and anchor it and question it and sit with it. And so that's what I'm inviting everybody else to do along with me, is like, what if there's a possibility that these stories have way more powerful meaning than we were ever told? And I think there's something there, because if we understand that our lymph and our blood and our emotions, like our own waters, if we understand what lives there, like water is a conduit, like we have the ability to work with that. If we claim ourselves and our own power, what does that say, right? Like the old paradigm has to fall because everything has been external. This is the new paradigm where everything, I don't want to say internal, but we are finally tapping on to our internal power. There's a bumblebee out here. I feel like I should look that up. I'm gonna. Personal transformation, community, abundance, messengers that guide us toward purpose, resilience, and creative expression, which is interesting because that is exactly what Medusa was trying to guide us towards, was our own expression. And this also says perseverance, reminding us to stay focused on our goals and embrace consistent effort in our endeavors. Okay, I love that. Okay, cool. It feels in alignment. So, Medusa's name actually means protectress, or protector, or guardian. I think we definitely should consider the fact that her parents were already considered primordial god and goddesses, so they are way older than the Olympian gods. That says something. I think it says something that she was the one who was put on Artemis's temple. That says something. Because if Medusa was just turning people to stone, I don't think that's enough. I think she has to be so freaking powerful for her to be put onto a temple like that. Okay? So, this is like the deep dive, but it's also like, okay, how can I take this information and also apply it to my life, you know? And that's where, again, go read my Substack article because it really is quite amazing. But what is Medusa trying to tell us about our inner waters, like our inner essence? So it's like your waters in your body are like a mirror, and so they are reflecting or transmitting or transmuting, transforming our inner and outer realities. So that's saying if we consciously work with them, right? If we consciously work with them, meaning, okay, I'm feeling like big emotions here, what's coming up for me, and you don't let that control you, you have the ability to manifest the life that you want, right? That's like a very simple way to say it. But our emotions can flow and be processed. They're not getting stuck in the body, right? And if they're stuck, then that's how we are kind of forming habitual patterns on how we perceive reality. So she's saying if you want to see reality in your own true lens, it's letting this stuff flow in your body and taking your power back, right? So I think there's also something to be said, because I do feel like Medusa has a big bandwidth of emotions. Like I think that was part of her design, and not even her design, that's part of like her magic, is being able to feel all the things. And I think that's one of the biggest things that she's probably trying to say to us, is that this isn't a bad thing. You're not supposed to go through your life numb, but you are supposed to be able to see like what's getting stuck, what's influencing your intuition, or what's influencing or blocking you from creating the life that you want. Because we all have the emotions, right? We all have the emotions. And like our lymph too, like these are all internal communication systems. And I think that's what she's saying, is that if we can keep ourselves in like a higher vibrational state, we have a much better way of taking and alchemizing what kind of stopped us and becoming us. Does that make sense? And I think that's where her power is. I think that there's so much beauty in that might have been stripped away. All right, I don't use this deck very often, but it is called Beyond Lumeria. And they are mermaids. And so I just felt like we should use that especially because we're talking about emotions, we're talking about our lymph, our blood, all the things. So I just wanted to see like maybe Medusa has a specific message for us. And I would love to hear like what you think, you know, what are your thoughts about Medusa's story maybe not being what we thought it was? What are your thoughts about her story maybe being way more powerful than what they let go down the line? What are your thoughts about her being primordial, like way older than some of these Olympian gods and goddesses, and them kind of looking to her, you know? I do wonder. It makes me, I really feel like that is a part of her story. And like when we talk about the rage, you know, there was rage around her. There was rage around her maybe like losing her voice, or there was rage around her being stripped of her innocence. There's rage around her being stripped of being a human. I think there's maybe rage around her entire story being manipulated. I mean, just that right there to me is like, why would Artemis have Medusa on the front of her temple if it's just a story about a human who was turned into a monster. And maybe it's because Artemis is the protector of virginity and chastity and all these things, but I don't even get that from Artemis. I think they both are so much more powerful. And maybe they put Medusa up there because it's like, well, she was stripped of that. Possibly. Totally possibility. But I feel, again, like there's much more here about Medusa than just that. I feel like she was a protector. But what was she protecting? And I think it has to do with, what I just said. Okay, so let's see what, Medusa, do you have any messages for us with what's going on in the world? Okay. So this is really interesting. She's basically, she just gave me third eye chakra and root chakra. I've never gotten these cards with this. So this is the pineal perspective. So I feel like I'm feeling validated in this. And then the root chakra is ground and center. So let's see what the book says. But I feel like this is also saying tap into your intuition and let it ground. The seat of wisdom and consciousness, intuition, imagination, seeing inner and outer worlds. Holy crap! Which is exactly what I said. The waters in your body act as a mirror, and so they will reflect to you what's going on in the inner, and you will see that on the outer. Whoa! This wisdom is ancient yet pioneering. It is the creator of the free will we will choose to weave from moment to moment. Be the observant witness. Allow the transcendence of duality without judgment. And duality also feels, it's paradoxical, right? Be mindful, listen, and allow your unfurling intuition to unravel the paradoxes of reality. What? Thank you. Okay. Seeing beyond illusion. So I feel like, one, she's saying in your own micro, see beyond illusion, right? Like, where are your own stories creating illusions of reality? Okay? But maybe her story was an illusion. Maybe what they created was an illusion, and her story is actually deeper than that. Whoa. Take note of any thought patterns that may be holding you from the fullest potential through the mind-based fear of past experiences. Okay, then we've got 2, root chakra. Okay. So this is foundations, groundings, basic needs, survival, physical identity, responsibilities, the place where we build our lives. So this is also interesting, the place where we build our lives, which I believe is what she's talking about. Like when we tap into our lymph, our blood, our emotions, all these things as acting as a conduit for our manifestations, this is basically saying, where did I just read that? The place where we build our lives. So this is like taking all of that and making it happen. You are held and have strong foundations for all aspects of your life. With your guard down, you have the tools to ride the waves if you need. Everything is okay. Spend time in nature, which is also very interesting because I think that's another reason why Medusa and Artemis are actually so connected, because and I'll get into this probably in a whole other video, but just a sneak peek, Artemis is actually, like, she's known as the goddess of the untamed natural world, but most of the time that's depicted with nature, you know, animals and things like that. But I actually don't get that at all. I think she has to do with like ions and the unseen and like plasma, and how Medusa and her work together to create this beautiful manifestation story. Okay, so spend time in nature, sit or stand barefoot in nature, and feel your roots merging with the earth beneath you. And this is basically saying you want to tap into those ions. Just wait for it, because this isn't the video. I'm going to have to do another one and a whole other article. But this is like saying, tap into the waters, you know, tap into your intuition, tap into the illusions, and tap into then the ions that are around you to help create the life that you want. Be aware of any recurring patterns that may be holding you back. Okay, great. Okay, anything else, Medusa? Anything else? Do you have anything else for us for what's happening and where we are? Okay, this says shine your light. Oh, and I love this. This one's with a mermaid, if you can see. Okay, shine your light. Okay, let's just look at this one really quickly. This, to me, what this is saying, before I look in the book, is saying everything that I've been channeling for the last 7 to 10 years has been really about coming back home to us, to ourselves as individuals. And who are we, and what are our own unique creative forces? Some people are really great painters. Some people are really great singers. What is yours? You know, what is your expression in life? And it doesn't have to be something massive or huge. It's just how you choose to express this in your everyday life. Okay? So let's look at that. And I feel like that's the biggest message for humanity right now, is to step into who the fuck you are unapologetically. But of course there's nuances in that, because we have these emotions that we're trying to process, and we've got to let shit go. But that's a whole journey. And are you allowing the journey to happen? Okay? Are you choosing to come back to yourself over and over and over and over again? Doing what you love, time to thrive, giving from the overflow, life purpose, being authentically you, compassionate self-empowerment, loving life, trying things you resonate with, bringing joy to others by being an inspiration. You are amazing. There is no one like you, and no one can do as you can do. Yet we sometimes feel that we need to be a certain way, a way not aligned with our authentic self. So this is, again, saying when you take the time to do what truly makes you shine each day, you will light up and bring joy to other people's worlds. As you will go about your life, you will have a sense of purpose. And that's the thing, is like so often we associate our purpose with how we make money or our work. Your purpose has literally nothing to do with that. Sometimes they are intertwined and sometimes they are not. And I think until we kind of release that, I think we might run into more friction or frustration. But if we can really allow ourselves to feel our joy or what lights us up, that's how we heal humanity, is becoming ourselves. Okay. It takes discipline to do what we love, especially if we are natural givers. It is easy to get caught up with other people's lives. Okay, so this is so great. There can be a strong cultural belief that fulfilling a creative need is selfish. The irony here, or paradox, is that tending to our own needs harms none, and we will have a lot more to give. And that's what's so interesting is I can't remember if I wrote this or I said this. There's too many thoughts in my mind, but sometimes we feel like really having our own, becoming an individual is separate or is separating us from the community. And that's not the case at all. I think we become more open to community when we are able to stand on our own, know who we are. And that's a whole other topic, like what is community? Because community isn't necessarily feeling like every single person identifies or validates or understands or believes what you believe. It's a place where you can support one another even amongst your differences. And I think that we have to be okay with becoming ourselves first before we really are going to know what community looks like. That, so good. So good. I will try to, I don't think I can tag my Substack article. So I will say, if you're interested more for like more of the science, because I don't want to bore you on this video, but if you're looking to really understand like what I was trying to really break down for us about our lymph and the water in our bodies, you can go to my Substack, which I believe is linked in my bio, and find that article about Medusa. And I'm just excited to share this because I feel like she is like my bish, like I love Medusa, and I really do love the goddesses, but Medusa and I really connect with her. So anyway, I feel like it was part of my purpose to share this maybe subtle side of her, or a story that might have been like hushed, through time. Okay. I leave everyone with that, and I hope that you feel that you can be more embodied. You're allowed to be yourself, and that is the journey that we are all on.